What is up, everybody? Welcome back, Steeler fans, to another episode of the Steelers Hangover. This one's, it's preseason, so it doesn't hurt as bad, but the Steelers lose. They lose to the Buccaneers, 17-14. What's going on, my man? How are you doing, Shannon?
I'm doing great. I tried to explain to my new daughter-in-law that preseason games don't really matter. That, I don't get as worked up and as excited as I do during the regular season. And they're like, well, what's different? I'm like, well, because there you're looking for execution. You're looking at certain players. You're trying to glean anything useful you can. But as far as the final score, normally when Sauls missed the kick there, that would have given the Steelers the lead, I'd have been like really upset. But he's going to be selling insurance shortly, and he'll get on with his life's work, And so you can't even get aggravated. You can't get angry. There was some good things that come out of it. So, and other than Christian Kuntz breaking his sternum, no really bad injuries.
Yeah, that was wild. I saw that. I saw when he went down. I was like, oh, that didn't look good.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was a pec, the way he was holding on to his chest. The sternum, although I guess sounds bad. It sounds horrific. Mike Tomlin came out and said it wasn't anything long term. They ended up going out there and signing another long snapper. How concerned are you going into the regular season with an unproven guy as a long snapper?
Well, if I had to lose a starter,
that's true.
This would probably be the one that I'd say, okay, I feel better about this one because they got a guy with a lot of experience. He's done this at the NFL level for many years, and he can fill in until Kuntz gets back, hopefully healthy and ready to go.
I agree. I hope for the same as well. But the Steelers go out there. Mason Rudolph throws an interception on his second pass, and I was a little disappointed. What did you think? What did you think overall about the Steelers' offense? Mason Rudolph, he had the first interception, but I thought overall after that, he seemed to get kind of on rhythm, kind of found Roman Wilson a little bit. What did you think about the passing offense for the Steelers during this preseason game?
Well, I'm watching everything, and I was really watching the offensive line, and it's like night and day. Broderick Jones that started training camp, and Broderick Jones now. I don't know if somebody lit a fire under him or somebody took him to the side and, really talked to him and said, hey, you're just too talented to be having these issues. But if you watch, he's just mirroring guys. He's just shutting them down. He has that athleticism, that ability to move. And Fautano's he's a stud. I think he would have been a star last year if he hadn't got injured. So I thought the offensive line did a really good job protecting the quarterbacks throughout the game. They're far ahead in their pass blocking than they are their run blocking at the moment. And I think that's just going to take a little more time because I think obviously they really focused on the pass protection. I guess when you sign a 41-year-old quarterback for a one-year deal, you're going to try to protect him. Something they've struggled to do since 2017, 2018. So, no, I think that Rudolph, he'd love to have that throwback, but after that he rebounded well. I thought he threw the ball very good after that initial bad pass. The second interception by Skylar Thompson, that's not on him. The ball went right through another in-short salesman. Wide receiver went through his hands and was intercepted. You can't blame that on Thompson. And finally, the last one to Woodside. I'm shocked he ain't selling insurance already. So I think the passing game, there was more pluses than minuses. I thought Roman Wilson stepped up. He looking more and more like he can really be that wide receiver too. We haven't seen Calvin Austin in forever. Scotty Miller just keeps making plays every time he's out there. And we haven't seen Freiermuth or Jonnu Smith. So for what they're working with, I think that the pass game has been pretty efficient.
Yeah, I thought the passing game was pretty good as well. I thought Roman Wilson played well in the opportunities that he had. He was the target on the interception, but I thought that was a bad decision on Mason Rudolph. Not necessarily something that 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 Wilson did wrong. And when it came to one of his other large or down the field passes, I thought if Mason put it out in front of him, he may have been gone to the house.
Yep.
So I was impressed. You mentioned him being possibly wide receiver too. Apparently, the Pittsburgh Steelers brought in Gabe Davis today. Uh, I don't know if they signed him. I didn't see anything. I'm going to check my phone real quick just to make sure I'm not giving you guys wrong information. But I don't recall him getting signed. But he was in the building. I don't think he was. What do you think that means for the Steelers? What do you think that means? The Steelers think of their receiving core, and do you expect Gabe Davis to be signed, or that needs to be breaking any moment now?
I think it could happen. I'm not really a big fan of it. But different people say he's kind of redundant if you already have DK Metcalf. Well, what that means is he plays kind of similar to Metcalf. So I think that if they bring him in, let's say they go 6 wide receivers or 5 deep, right?
Mm-hmm.
They would have him in case something was to happen to Metcalf if he missed a game or two. Because everybody else is mighty mites. They're kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
Roman Wilson's a little bigger than Miller and CA3, but he's still a smaller guy. He blocks well. He's an eager blocker. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
They have some guys that can make some plays, but they don't have anybody that can emulate what DK Metcalf will give them. So if they do bring in Gabe Davis, I think it would be at a reasonable price to, be in that top rotation. Give them another guy that can kind of stretch the field, do some of the things that Metcalf can do. But I still expect them. The closer we get, the less likely a trade I'm afraid is going to happen. I'd like to see a trade, but I think at the final cuts, the Steelers will definitely try to bring somebody in to take a look at. Another receiver with some size.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I think that it doesn't appear that there's this long line of general managers, reaching out to Gabe Davis to sign him today. Mm-hmm. I think you want to, see where he's at, see how he's progressed, see, because they saw him once, see how much he's progressed in the time that they've seen him since the last time they've seen him as far as the health of the knee. He had I believe a meniscus tear that he had surgically repaired, I think late last season. And so for whatever reason, they don't feel comfortable with it the last time he was here. If it was that, maybe perhaps it's a money thing. I tend to believe it was probably the injury thing, because they brought him back. Maybe his price has gone down. I don't know, but I would rather wait to see if somebody does get cut. At the at the end of the next. When is it? The end of this week? Next week, somewhere around there, is when the cut down is to 53.
I think it's next week.
Yeah,
and then you have a week between the cut downs and the start of the season. So.
Yeah, so you're already there. It's just a few days away. Might as well wait the week or so and see who gets dropped. Maybe you have a better option. And if not, bringing in a guy like Gabe Davis isn't. I don't think it hurts your team. I don't think it really moves the needle too far. It's more of a security blanket if there's injury and depth, and you have somebody that can fill in for a guy like DK if he goes down for a game or two. In my opinion.
You got Ben Schroenick, if I'm saying his name right. They said he has a toe injury that he hurt in the joint practice with the Buccaneers last week. And he played in the game, but, I think he only played like a couple of plays. And so he's kind of injured, dinged up right now. So that might be one reason that they're looking at Gabe Davis as well. They cut Rock Taylor already to make room, and I was kind of shocked because I thought that Max Hurlman had a real shot in making the roster because he could play 5 positions, but then had that touchdown, should have been a touchdown, right through his hands. That's a huge miss because he's done everything else right. But that was the most. He ran a good route, Daniel. He ran a good route. He left the guy. He smoked him. He was wide open. But yes, Rudolph could have took about, a few knots off of that. I mean, that was coming in smoking.
Yeah.
But you got to catch that. And so I feel like that might have said practice squad written all over it when I think he had a chance to sneak on the roster, maybe.
Yeah, I first thing that went through my mind was like the football. His opportunity just went through his fingers. I mean, that was the first thing that went through my mind when he dropped it. I was like, "Ooh, dude, they put you out there with the." I mean, it's not the ones because it's not the real ones. Most of them are out there, but the first team in this game.
Yeah,
he was in the second half in the game before, so to see him in the first, in the first quarter, like, all right, they're giving you an opportunity to see what you got. You earned it, and then you just let it slip through your fingers, man. Hopefully, it doesn't define his career. Because some players in this league, that's all you get is the opportunities that you have during the preseason.
If you get one, yeah.
Exactly. And so, hopefully he gets another opportunity. Transitioning though to some of the other positions he would have played, the running back position, Caleb Johnson, 11 carries, 50 yards, 4.5 yards a carry, 14-yard long. Looked a little bit better in my opinion. What did you think about the young man running the ball?
Yeah, he finally calmed down enough to keep his feet under him. The first, he wanted so badly to impress the first game. He was playing, he wasn't staying over his toes, and he was falling down in the open field. When you break into the open field like that, he did the hard work, and then he trip over his own feet. So you've seen the fluidity. When he runs, he's not a choppy runner. That's why he can get tackled low. He gets caught by the shoe or the ankle a lot. When you want him to high step there, but that's not the type of runner he is. He glides, and so he's not a high stepper. So I love how fluid he is, and he made a couple of really nice cuts. One time he seen the hole open. It wasn't the designed hole, but he seen the hole open when the inside backer over pursued and was going to meet him in the hole, and he cut behind him and got a nice run up the middle. I think it was about 10 yards. You see that vision. That is one of the two biggest things he has over Harris is Harris had no vision. Well, we know Johnson can see and locate holes, and Johnson has that gear if he gets in the open field. That's, Harris only had the one speed. So I thought Johnson looked much better this game. Just seemed like he was calmer. Got those first game jitters out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought so too. He seemed more decisive too. Yeah. And there was one play where he just kind of cut the long one for 14.
Yeah.
That was it was a beautiful play. He was very decisive, made his one cut, ran through the hole. The hole was open for days. I think I could have ran through it. Which kind of is an attestament to the offensive line doing better. I know you brought it up earlier, but Broderick Jones definitely has looked better. I don't know if it's, as you mentioned, maybe somebody talking to him or lighting a fire under him, or maybe perhaps he's not facing this Pittsburgh Steelers defense play in, play out against these other teams and opponents, and he's having much better success against some of these potentially less. And I'm not saying the Buccaneers don't have some quality pass rushers. They do.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe perhaps it's not the same as Alex Smith and TJ Watt. I'm sure if you're having to face them day in, day out, you're going to look bad at times.
Oh, anybody would. I just thought with his blocking, even on one that, if you remember, Johnson broke it outside late, and he was able to have the speed to get around the corner. As I mentioned earlier, he does have enough speed to do that. But the guys were good at keeping their hands inside and not getting called for holding.
Yeah.
And, that's something that is so common. Anytime anybody has success bouncing a run late to the outside, there's almost always a holding call because guys want to, it's kind of obvious. Mm-hmm. And I thought that Fautano and Jones did a good job of keeping their hands inside and not holding, at least not blatantly holding, to where you're going to get flagged for it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Transitioning to the tight ends, Darnell Washington's the only one that really sticks out to me. We haven't seen Johnny Smith. We haven't seen Pat Fryermuth. I really don't even notice the other guys that are depth, to be honest with you. And I think this is a way, I think the Steelers are going to come out and surprise some teams with what they're going to do with their tight ends because of the fact that they haven't showcased anything that they're doing with the tight ends in preseason. I mean, we've seen some moves or some of the things with Darnell Washington. I thought he blocked fairly well. I don't know if he registered a reception or not. I don't remember one, but
I don't think they targeted him. I remember.
I don't think so either. I don't think so either. I'm kind of looking at the stats, and I think the only tight end that had any receptions was Connor Hayward. Do you think Connor's going to still be on the team come? Where do you think he is on this team right now?
Well, at one point I thought that DJ Johnson, the young undrafted free agent, he was looking really good. And I thought with his ability to play fullback and play tight end, I thought that he might give Hayward push him a little bit. But, of course, he got injured and then was released. I like J.J. Galbraith, but, he's right now, he needs more weight. He kind of looks like a big, slow wide receiver.
Yeah.
So if he's going to play tight end, he's got really good hands, but he's going to have to put on some weight. So I expect him maybe practice squad. And we know the Steelers love tight ends in Arthur Smith's offense. So I think Connor Hayward makes the team now as the tight end 4 and, emergency fullback.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. I think the Steelers are going to end up keeping 4, and I think he's going to be the 4th one. But so overall, looking at the team offensively, I mean, there's not much we can dissect as far as game planning because there's not a lot of game planning in these preseason games.
No,
some of it is situational. Sometimes they'll make things not necessarily obvious, but they'll want to see the running back run the ball, so they'll run the ball 3 times in a row. Not necessarily something that you would do maybe perhaps in game, but then again, I think I've seen the Steelers do that before. What did you think about, I guess, necessarily the plays that they called? I mean, for a preseason game.
Well, it's funny. We've been fooled by the preseason before. I fully admit that I was fooled by the perfect preseason and Kenny Pickett, and I said Matt Canada, and he's finally, figured out some things with the NFL level, and this offense is going to be better, and it went right back to crap first week of the season. So this year, they obviously don't care. They're not playing any of the starters. I mean, really, truly, I mean, other than the offensive line, you got to play a few guys. They got to get a few reps, but none of the other starters were playing at all. And so you're seeing such a vanilla game plan. I mean, at one time there, it was a 4th down play. And it was 4th and long, and they threw like a 4 or 5 yard pass to Galbraith. Had he even caught the ball, he wasn't going to sniff a first down. I mean, they didn't even care. It was just, they're going through the motions, is the way I feel. They're really focusing on certain players. Like it's been like the whole plan was we're going to come out and we're going to get the ball to Roman Wilson. And we're going to see, can he step up in this environment, this preseason home game, the only home game for the Steelers in the preseason, and Roman Wilson rose to the occasion. But you could tell even the interception, as you say, was supposed to go to Roman Wilson. So they were intent on focusing on him because he was basically the number 1 wide receiver in the game at that point. Without Metcalf, without Calvin Austin, So I just think that the Steelers, we really can't glean a lot as far as strategic from this preseason because it's just been all vanilla. But we can focus on individual players, and I've been encouraged by what I'm seeing out of certain players. But I'm not taking anything away from the game plans or the play calls because, like I said, it's just they just don't really care that much, to be honest. They're
Yeah,
losing at the end and missed the field goal. Tomlin was laughing and smiling. I mean, normally he would have been losing it.
true story. True story. Yeah, I don't take much weight into it, and you're absolutely right. We've all seen Mr. Preseason come in and have a spectacular preseason, and then it not transition. But what do you think about the fact that the Steelers haven't played anybody? We'll start off on offense. They haven't played any of the offensive guys. You would assume that it takes a little bit more gelling, for the offense. Especially with a quarterback that's brand new and to the team, to the players, and to the coaching staff. This is a new offense for him. He hasn't participated in any preseason games, and I know he talked about how there's no game planning and it's not this or that. But I mean, you can practice all you want, but you can't simulate, real bullets coming at you.
Yeah.
What do you think about this approach so far? The Steelers had a joint practice against the Buccaneers. It didn't sound like they did too well offensively. It didn't sound like they did too well defensively either. Are you concerned that they haven't participated in a game yet?
It's one of them. You're darned if you do and darned if you don't. If you play the guys and anybody gets hurt, somebody's going to be complaining. None of the starting defensive guys hardly play. They've used Nick Herbig. And after 3 plays, he hurts his hamstring. And I see people questioning, why was he in there? Somebody got to play.
Yeah.
You can't please everybody. And Tomlin says he don't care. He don't listen to the fans at all. He was on the podcast there last week, and he said he don't care what the fans think. So this is a change. In the past, they have played starters, at least some, in the second game. Mm-hmm. Well, this year, none. They really are just showing they don't care. Now, you've got such an older team at some of the key positions. As you said, usually the offense needs it more than the defense. But the defense is a lot of new guys. And you're talking about the highest paid defense in the NFL by a large margin now. And they ain't even paid Hayward yet. He wants more. So that'll make them even higher. Above everybody else. So on offense, you've got a cheap offense, one of the lowest paid units in the NFL, and you've got new players and old guys and rookies and we see how that worked for Cincinnati the last 3 or 4 years, not playing the starters in the preseason. It's starting out 0-2 all the time. Because like you said, you cannot simulate at practice live game action. It's just you can't do it. So my concern is I know you want to stay healthy, but they've had injuries anyway. Just at practice, all these soft tissue injuries and everything else. Seems like every unit's got somebody hurt right now.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. I'm afraid they're going to start slow, though. This is a team that, again, needs to start fast this year.
I would hope so. I hope they start fast, but it is something that I am concerned about as well, a slow start. Offensively, offensive players are more dependent on the other players than the defensive players. You can do your job and if you're an outside corner and they have you on man because you're not familiar with the offense and they say, all right, guard that person. You can go out there and do that. You can't really do that on the offensive side. Yeah, there's some chemistry that's built. The running back has to, have a feel for the way the offensive line is blocking and moving and where the holes develop and stuff like that. And if you don't have those players out there playing and participating, I just feel that it's just going to be a slow start. And I fear that when you have a slower start like that, where you're having guys that are potentially going into games now thinking more because they're getting used to it versus reacting and playing fast, then you have a higher chance of injury during those moments versus when you put them out there during preseason, get them a little bit of a taste. It's not like they're playing the whole game. We're expecting him to play 60 minutes week one. You get what I'm saying? So, I mean,
yeah, oh yeah,
8-10 minutes out of a preseason game shouldn't be something that's overly drastic. And if somebody blows a knee or gets hurt or some of those things happen, who's to say that wasn't going to happen week one if you would have waited, or who's to say that they don't get even more injuries? We can look back at TJ Watt in his year when he went and he ended up getting the tying the single season sack record. He didn't participate that season because he was going through a contract thing, and he was doing a whole dance, still stretching, still there, but he wasn't participating in live action, and he had a lot of soft tissue stuff. A lot of us thought, man, if that contract situation didn't go out as long as it did, and he got to, participate and work up to a live game, maybe perhaps that injury wouldn't have occurred, and maybe perhaps he probably would have gotten at least another half sack and gotten the record solo. So, you're right. It's a double-edged sword. If they go out there and get hurt, everybody's going to hold them accountable. And if the Steelers go out there and start off slow, everybody's going to armchair quarterback that and say, we told you so.
Oh, everybody, like I said, is the head coach, is part of the job description is you're going to take crap from somebody, and maybe that's why the Thomas says he don't care. And really that's the best way, because if you take to heart everything that's said, I've been watching some of the quarterback show on Netflix where they followed Joe Burrow and Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff last year. And, Cousins' wife's like, I usually, look at social media. But when Cousins was hurt and started playing bad, she said, I couldn't anymore. And because, people just, they lose their mind. They really do. I mean, it's one thing when we talk about, I get frustrated about how the Steelers play conservative and they're not being aggressive enough. And I worry about that this year, Daniel, is with all the talent that they should have and ability to play press man, will they stick with it if they struggle to start out a game? It's something the players got to have confidence, and they got to see that you're going to stick with it and have faith in them. And if you immediately start flip-flopping around, like we have at the quarterback position from time to time, that doesn't instill confidence. And so I'm hopeful that the Steelers are going to be more aggressive this year, but I'll kind of wait to see when it really happens.
No, I don't disagree with you there. I hope they are as well. We'll see what happens there. But we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk more about your favorite football team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Don't go anywhere. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Thank you for sticking with us. Before we get back into the conversation, I want to remind you guys of our website, steelcurtainnetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage. Make sure you go check it out when you're done listening here. And while you're there, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can check out our audio-only podcasts, which include mine, State of the Steelers, that airs out on Saturdays. It hasn't been airing out these last 2 Saturdays because, well, the Steelers have been playing on Saturdays, and so the live shelf of the podcast wouldn't be very long. And so we prolonged it and gave me a couple of weeks off, and I'll be back this Saturday, not live, but recorded on the audio only place there for Steel Curtain Network at steelcurtainnetwork.com. So make sure you guys go and check that out. All righty there, Shannon. So defensively, the Steelers, they allowed some movement. Through the air with Teddy Bridgewater there. There was some guys that, like number 39 Porter, looked kind of funny out there. I'm not going to lie. I was like, man, Minka looked like mini Minka out there. Overall, though, I thought that the defense played well. They had a lot of players missing, tons of players. A lot of the high-paid players. You mentioned Nick Herbig going down with a groin injury. That's Herbig. That's Highsmith. Should the Steelers be looking out for outside linebackers at this point, or do you think there's enough confidence in Jack Sawyer to step it up if need be in Week 1?
Well, as far as I've heard, Highsmith is close to being able to come back. When he's had this injury in the past, it has lingered, and he's re-injured it during the season. So this isn't the first time he's had this injury. It's kind of new for Herbig though, but neither one says it doesn't seem to be a bad grade sprain or pull. So I think that they'll be ready by the time the regular season rolls around. As you say, you do have Sawyer, who is a very solid guy already. He's got a professional build already. He plays with professional strength. He sets the edge. Coming from Ohio State, the best program out there, the dude's ready. Now he will fine tune his pass rush, his hand usage, hand fighting, his get off. I remember Alex Highsmith took a big jump from season 1 to season 2. He got close on a lot of sacks season 1. He completed them a lot more in season 2. So I think we'll see the same with Sawyer. He's got great guys to learn from. And we always got to remember that we have 2 of the inside backers. Peyton Wilson has some experience in college on the outside. He has the athleticism, kind of like Chad Brown, a blast from the past, an older guy that us older fans remember. Chad Brown can play on the outside too, or inside. And so does Malik Harrison. He played both for the Ravens. So the Steelers are pretty deep on the edge. I'm really not concerned about it.
Yeah, and there's another player that's kind of stepped up a little bit, somewhat new to the position, DeMarvin Leal. He was moved out from defensive end to the linebacker position, and he had a couple of tackles, some solo tackles this last game. He's kind of shown up a little bit at times. I'm like, oh man, who's that? And then I see it's 98, and I'm like, wow, that was DeMarvin Leal. I wasn't expecting him to be out there or to have the impact that he did. I mean, it's not earth shattering or anything, but it's been solid. And Jack Sawyer, he's done well. I think he's done well. He's shown himself well. These soft tissue issues, though, man, they just keep happening. They keep happening. They keep creeping up.
They got new trainers. They're trying, but it's just like I said. I think we might have talked about it last week. It's just there's so much. These guys push their bodies to the physical limit to be able to play at the highest level. Not everybody's a physical freak like Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons. Some of these guys are just unbelievable. They walk around in this condition all the time. Most guys have to work to get to NFL level conditioning. The problem is not everybody's ligaments and tendons are strong enough to handle the weight that they're carrying and the torque they create and the power. And they get these pulls, as you say, soft tissue all the time. And the Steelers hired new trainers. They're trying their best. But a lot of this is the work they're doing in the offseason. And they come in now in great condition. And it seems like a lot of this shows up in the preseason.
Maybe it has to do with the heat. Mike Tomlin hosting practice at the hottest point of the day. Dehydration sets in. Maybe some of these players need to get IVs straight to the thighs or something.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's crazy. It really is.
Because it's insane. I know they're building an indoor facility outside there, I think in Latrobe, for the future. They're saying it's for weather-related instances. Maybe they need to also think about it when it's extremely hot. I know that you want to live in that misery. You want to build out of it. But at a certain point, it becomes detrimental to the team if people are going down with these issues, if it can be accounted to some sort of dehydration issue. Just food for thought for the future. I'm not a trainer. I'm not an expert or a doctor. So, but I've pulled a couple of hamstrings, and I'll tell you what, it's because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
because I was dehydrated. Now, the inside linebackers, Cole Holcomb, and the guy looks good. The guy looks good. He looks like he can fight for some snaps. If the Steelers are going to rotate him in and out, who's he taking snaps from? Patrick Queen or Peyton Wilson?
Well, you want both of those guys in there, but nobody plays every snap on defense anymore. It's not practical because you're going to wear guys out by the end of the year. Now, if you're, say, a top 2 or 3 defense in the NFL and you're getting a lot of 3 and outs, maybe, you play your starters the majority. But usually you're going up against the Joe Burrows and the Lamar Jacksons and the quarterbacks they're going to see and the offenses they're going to see. There's going to be some 10, 12, 15 play drives. They're going to get worn down, and it's good to have that rotation. I think that Holcomb is the perfect backup to Peyton Wilson. Holcomb is another guy who's great with the green dot. I would keep the green dot on Peyton Wilson and Cole Holcomb. I'd take it off of Patrick Queen immediately and just say, sick him. Don't ask him to do anything. Just go get the ball, kill the ball carrier. That's all that matters. And then you have Harrison, who's a great backup for Patrick Queen. So I like the setup they have. They just got to use them right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that when it comes to Patrick Queen and the green dot, I'm okay if he gets another opportunity with it this year, because last year was his first year. It was first year with the team, new defense, getting the green dot, being at the helm. I'd like to see what he can do with it this year, but I do agree that if there is some struggles there, you have some options now. Last year at the end of the season, it appeared that Patrick Queen was dealing with, against the Ravens, he was dealing with an illness. And it was affecting him, and they played him. And I think Cole Holcomb actually may have had an opportunity, depending on how serious the illness was or how bad he was feeling, and he was able to play. Patrick Queen was, but with a guy like Payne Wilson and Cole Holcomb, kind of at the level where it doesn't look like he dropped off much, if any at all. You can feel confident that if you have a situation where somebody is fatigued, tired, or injured, and they're not playing to the standard, so to speak. And I'm not saying that Patrick Queen was responsible for the 299 yards. That was a collective effort by the defense to allow that. But if you had, a healthier Cole Holcomb at the time, I think you probably do rotate him in, and you feel more confident in what you have in the middle of the field there.
I don't know if you remember when Patrick Queen first went to the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
They asked him to be involved a lot with the analytical side. And he was not aggressive like he'd been in college. He was reactionary. And the Ravens realized, oh, God, this ain't working. They traded for Roquan Smith,
Mm-hmm.
Who is the analytical one. And they made Patrick Queen the instinctual one. And some guys, that's just how they thrive. Now, last year, I seen Patrick Queen absorb the action. I mean, he was a half Steph Blake. And like against the Ravens, now understand, the defensive line did not give Patrick Queen any protection last year. And he was hitting guys 3 yards downfield. He wasn't hitting guys in the backfield like he had with the Ravens where he was attacking. He was absorbing because he had to make sure that he tried to prevent the big runs because the defensive line wasn't making a lot of tackles. And again, that is not his forte. That is not his strength. When I see him going forward to make a tackle, I feel confident in his ability. Even to tackle Derrick Henry. If he's absorbing and he's kind of waiting in the hole for Henry to hit him, he's going to lose those plays. Because I don't think a lot of people realize Patrick Queen's not a big line. He's not a big linebacker. He's medium-sized to small, actually. And he plays, he has to have momentum He has to play through the ball. And so I just think that when you watch how that Peyton Wilson, his ability his speed and his ability to cover, and how when he is making those calls and adjustments, he's coming off right with the snap. There's no hesitation. And I just think because if you want to get the maximum benefit out of what you're paying Patrick Queen, you take that green dot away.
Yeah, no, the stats don't lie either. So I'm looking him up real quick. And when it comes to Patrick Queen, last year with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we'll compare him with the year previous with the Baltimore Ravens. Both years he started 17 games. He had an interception with Baltimore, and none with the Steelers. He had the opportunity. I think he's had his hand on like
he
2
missed
or 3.
A couple, yeah.
He could have come down with a few, but he didn't. And then he had more forced fumbles. He had 2 with the Steelers, only 1 with the Ravens. But when it comes to the other stats, he had 3.5 sacks with the Ravens, 5 sacks the year before that with the Ravens. With the Steelers, he had 1. Combined tackles, it wasn't too bad. He had 129 this year. Last year, or the year before with the Ravens, had 133. This is where he's dipped down, is on the solo tackles. He had 65 solo tackles, which is his worst season in the league. He was in the 60s his first 2 years in Baltimore. I believe those was his first 2 years is when he had the green dot. In the 2 past years, he had 79 and 84. So he was definitely significantly higher on the solo tackles. He had more assisted tackles with a member of the Steelers, and he had his lowest tackles for loss in his career with 6. And every other year he's had 9 or 10. So quarterback hits was also down by to 5 from 6. So it does show that he didn't have the best year, as a Steeler. I don't think he had a really horrible year. It was all right. I think he struggled early on. He had a lot of missed tackles in the beginning of the season. And, I think that he started to settle down as the year progressed. I can see a step. I can see he making a step forward in year 2 with the Steelers. He's relatively young. He now has a better understanding of the defense and the players around him. And I think that those that front defensive line, I mean, they got it set up, the middle linebackers. They got a front defensive line that's going to help them out, and they got some defensive backs that can really hold it down behind them. They got it set it up this year. They need to be a dynamic trio or duo, however you want to look at them, between Cole Holcomb, Peyton Wilson, and Patrick Queen this year. But
I want to ask you a question.
Yeah,
and the community. My opinion, with what they're paying, even without paying Cam Hayward yet, this team with the talent they have, again, major injury, barring major injury, this has got to be a top 3 unit for that price tag to be worth it. I mean, even if they're top 10, I think no. I mean, you can't overpay. If you do not invest wisely, you can end up paying too much money for an aging defense that doesn't play up to their potential. So for me, this year they need to be top 3 to justify that how much they're paying. What do you think?
I think regardless of injury, they have to be, because they chose to acquire some players who are seasoned, who have had some seasons under their belt. They've chosen some players who, like Chuck. Oh God, what's his name? One of the safeties they got, he's had some injury deals.
Chuck Clark.
Yeah. And I think there was another guy that they had picked up that was older that even Ramsey has dealt with some injuries in his past. And so you got some guys that are older. You got some guys that have had some bumps and bruises. Some guys that have been on the Steelers, like an Alex Highsmith, who's had a habitual issue with soft tissue stuff over the years. Yet the Steelers have decided to pay these guys. And so regardless if there's an injury situation or not, they knew what they were getting into and they decided to pay for it. They need to be a top 5, top 3, in my opinion. they can't have another game where somebody runs all over them and dominates them the way the Ravens did in that postseason game. That cannot happen at all.
That's just, anybody that's ever been in athletic competition, especially team competition, there's times that you kind of know, okay, we ain't winning this. But there's a pride factor that you're playing for something more than your name on the back of the jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And in that game against the Ravens, they was guys that just quit. I mean, just honest to God, they quit. They got embarrassed. It's something that should never happen to a team of the Steelers' caliber, a franchise, much less a defense paid what the Steelers were paid even last year. So that's unacceptable. There were some guys that I did not want to see back. A couple of them are back. But I expect it to be different this year. Some of them that I thought was really bad culprits quitting that last game are no longer with the Steelers. And I think that'll go a long way. Guys made business decisions late in that game. Here come Derrick Henry running at him, and they kind of did a little ole, or they jumped on his back and rode him for 10 yards because they wasn't going to try to, make a tackle because the game was over. But you control your effort. Only you. And so that was some guys that were unacceptable towards the end of the season, and I'm glad most of them are gone.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There was a question about heart with some of the players that the Steelers had that they were gotten rid of and that they no longer have. But in that game, the Steelers' defensive line got ravished, and the Steelers have addressed that. They've gone through the draft. They picked up a guy like Derek Harmon and Wyatt Black, and I think that Derek Harmon stood out this game. He had 3 tackles. He had a sack, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, he did have a sack and a tackle for loss. He did very well. I thought he was a disruptor. I thought he was moving the offensive line back into the backfield. They're going to need that. I think Wyatt Black was dealing with an injury, so he was limited on the amount of plays he was playing, and he had a big bulky brace on his arm. I think from what we've seen of him, he's good. I think if he's injured, they probably need to rest him and make sure that he's healthy for the season, even though they probably aren't going to use him as much as they'll use Harmon or anything like that. But I think that when they use the guy like Wyatt Black, when they have used him, he's just pushed people around, and it doesn't matter what scheme you're doing. If he's taking on blocks and he's just throwing people, it doesn't matter. And so, what do you think about the defensive line? How have they progressed to you this season going into the second game from last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars?
I'm just really thrilled with this. Last year, the Steelers picked 3 starting offensive linemen. And we'll talk about that for years to come, I believe. Mm-hmm. This year, I think they did the same on the defensive line, and that they drafted Harmon. They got, Wyatt Black. They got Jack Sawyer, who I think is going to be a staple down through the years. I think they had an outstanding draft, and they got Uquale from the Patriots, that he's going to give them quality minutes, I believe, on the interior. They got Benton. This will be his 3rd year. Hopefully to see him step up. It should be different. You've got guys in Harmon and Black who can tie up multiple blockers, can protect them inside linebackers. It doesn't matter if you've got really talented inside linebackers if they're making tackles 5 yards downfield. I mean, because the holes are there and your defensive line's getting blown off the ball. So I'm excited about the future. I just hate that this whole Cam Hayward situation is going on right now, because this is where they really need to be focusing on as a cohesive unit, getting ready for the regular season. But hopefully the Steelers and Hayward can come to some agreement and get this thing settled soon and get the focus back on where it needs to be on football.
Yeah. I hope they get that settled soon. You're absolutely right there. I think he's already threatened to miss some games. He's gotten paid a bulk of his salary How do you feel about that? I mean, he's gotten paid 13 million. He's got like $1 million left or something like that on his contract. Some folks are saying, hey, you signed a contract last year.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks are feeling a certain way. He's feeling the pressure to a certain extent. He's tweeted out things like, hey, you die a hero or live long enough to become the villain, alluding to how some of the fans may feel about his contract situation. What do you think about the contract situation? Do you think it's fair or unfair of him to be asking for more money?
Well, we talked about it a little bit last week on our Pump Your Brakes podcast, in that if you really had faith in yourself, you would have put it in and say, if I hit these incentives, he said he told him, once I'm all pro, I'm going to come back to the negotiating table. Well, don't sign a 2-year deal. Bet on yourself, sign a 1-year deal. But nobody wants a 1-year deal because they say, I need security for my family. My family needs to know we're going to be here. You can't have your cake and eat it too. If you really think you're going to be great, you're going to be an all pro, say the safest way, Daniel, is sign a 2-year deal, but say, if I hit these incentives, I get this money. Well, the problem is the team's obviously going to say, hey, well, we're going to make it a bigger part of the incentive, not so much the guarantee. People, they want guarantee, but they also want incentives too. So it's I see it from both sides, but I do think that I was raised, if you got a contract, a handshake is a contract the way I was raised. And if you say you're going to do it, you do it. Now, saying you can ask for more money and you can state your case that I need more money, I deserve more money. But it's up to the franchise whether they feel like they can afford to do that or not. And because everybody knows they got some cap space this year, which is unusual for the Steelers, and they're not paying a quarterback, big money, and you know what I mean. He knows this is the time to ask for it. Towards the end of his career. So I can see both sides, but I just think it's bad faith to not honor your contract and then to say, well, I'll hold out. I'll miss some games. If you really care about legacy, you've not really had a Super Bowl contending realistic chance since being retired.
Mm-hmm.
And really probably 2018 was your last real opportunity. Now this is your best chance since then. He's 1-8 in the playoffs, Daniel. 1-8. So if you really want to win and you really want to bring a title to Pittsburgh and all this legacy matters, this is not the time to do this. The saying, I'm going to hold out, maybe miss some games, that's when he went too far, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, holding out during preseason and wanting more money during that time and seeing what you can get is one thing, but
yes.
Missing the game aspect and even this now, because you have so many new guys coming in. It sounds like he's out there and he's participating to a certain extent, but you got some new guys that you just drafted. You want to kind of teach them the Steelers way, so to speak. This is an odd first impression of the Steelers way for a guy like Derek Harmon and Wyatt Black.
I mean, here's Derek Harmon, lost his mother on draft night. I mean, I can't imagine what the young man has went through.
Mm-hmm.
He did not wallow. He showed up at camp. He's been in shape. He's working hard. This team has been there for him. The Steelers are like that. When there's tragedy, they rally around their players. Ask Ryan Shazier. And that's what the Steelers are known for. I asked the guys Wednesday, Daniel, and I asked you, when's the last time you remember the Steelers screwing a player? I mean, just flat out,
Mason Rudolph.
They could have got out of a lot of the Ryan Shazier stuff. They kept him around, even though they knew he'd never play again, but that would help with his rehab and get him back to where he is now, where he can coach, he can walk, he can have a normal life. They did that because they got character. Yeah. This organization has character. Now, I wouldn't say that about every organization, but I know the Steelers. And they have been more than fair with Cam Hayward through his career. And I think he would admit that. Now, why is it that he thinks now that they're going to screw him? I think the way he's handling this is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree. And to my knowledge, the only player that the Steelers have ever screwed over is probably Mason Rudolph, and promising him an opportunity to be a starter on multiple occasions and take and
No,
sweeping the rug
that's
out from under.
debatable. Yes, I mean it really is. I mean, we wasn't in those rooms, but based on
Yeah.
what he said and different things, and I don't know if Robert Spillane, when it come up time for him to get a new contract, they told him to go explore free agency and see what kind of deal he could get, and then they wanted him back. Well, the Raiders offered him a pretty good deal, and when he came to the Steelers told him no, good luck, and that hurt him. And I know it would because he wanted to stay in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I don't think that's screwing him.
No.
I think that was saying, hey, they're going to give you this contract. You're going to be a starter. You're going to be an important piece of that defense. They didn't view him as a long-term solution. I think they did the right thing by letting him go.
Yeah. No, that type of approach hasn't always worked out for the Steelers. The same thing happened with Hargrave. They let him go and check out. They offered him some money. The Eagles offered him more. Steelers wouldn't match it, and they ended up where they ended up. So, lastly, what do you think about the cornerback position? In reality, the only real players that we're seeing out there that might have an opportunity to make in the 53, we have you have James Pierre, you have Brandon Eccles, and you have Beanie Bishop. Now, I don't think all three of them make it. Who are out on? Who do you think are on the outskirts looking in from them?
Well, Eccles has made it. Eccles is your number. He's your number 4 corner, and that's after JPJ, Ramsey, and Slay. I mean, so that's because I think Ramsey's going to end up playing some safety, and he's going to be moved all over. But Eccles can play slide. He can play outside. He is excellent. He has outplayed everybody else. I think that they like Pierre more than the fans do. Now, I've always been a fan of Pierre. I realize his limitations, but also realize his versatility and his value that way. Beanie, I think in this second season, preseason, has been trying to play it a little safe and not being quite as aggressive as he needs to be. But I think he sees the guys on down the depth chart, including Corey Trice, who, as much as I want to see him succeed, he can't stay healthy. He just cannot stay healthy. And now he's missed 3 weeks. I don't know if he's going to play at all this preseason. It don't look like it.
Mm-hmm.
And, how long is potential going to keep you around? It has to be some production in there, not just potential. And we've seen it last year, but he got hurt. He showed he could play at the NFL level last year in the regular season, and then he got hurt. So, I actually think there's a chance that Eccles, Pierre, and Bishop make it. And I'm concerned that Trice won't.
Yeah, I don't think Trice will. I left him out. I forgot about him, to be honest with you, because he just doesn't
he's forgettable because he can't stay healthy.
Exactly. The Steelers have a lot of safeties that they're looking at, and they brought in some depth there as well. I feel that one of these guys, and I think Eccles has made it. I think when it comes down to it, either Pierre or Beanie Bishop are going to find themselves in the practice squad. One of those guys I just have this feeling that one of them isn't going to make it. But we'll see. We'll see. There's going to be a big game this week. I believe it's on Thursday night against the Carolina Panthers, and it'll be a big game for these guys.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I've been impressed with Castro. More than I have Chuck Clark. Now I know that he's a veteran and he's not been getting too many reps out there, but Castro has been, and I think Castro. I like him. I think he'll probably start out in the practice squad because one, I don't expect them to move on from Killebrew because Killebrew is great special teams, but he offers you hardly nothing on defense.
I agree. Well, that was a great one there. Shannon, do you have any final words for everybody before we call this one?
No, I'm wanting to watch. I know that some of my colleagues are like, well, this last preseason game don't mean anything. Well, it does to a lot of the young men. And I think there's still some doubt on some of these guys who's going to make it and who won't, at least who's going to make the practice squad. And some of the guys you mentioned that might not make the roster maybe can make the practice squad. Max Herman, a young man I'm kind of rooting for, he has a chance to squeeze on because he can play like 5 positions. So I'm looking forward to kind of tuning in. And again, I ain't worried about the results. I want to see individual players.
Yeah, me too. It'll be a good game. It'll be a good watch. It'll be the last non-important football game for the year. And then there's a little bit of a break, and then real football starts, and the excitement, man, it only builds up more. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Shannon, take us out, my man.